So those are puzzle mysteries and story mysteries that haunt me, that haunt my dreams. Do they haunt your dreams?
They don't haunt my dreams. I've gotten over it.
Should we talk about the news?
Sure. I mean, we just were. A guy skateboarded
that's
down
true.
a building in Brazil.
That's the news. We do have a bit of gaming news we wanted to talk about today. The main bit, it's not a bit, it's actually kind of big, being that the Wall Street Journal reported on September 26th that EA Games is in talks for a leveraged buyout to go private, led by investors Silver Lake, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, and Jared Kushner's fund, Infinity Partners. It's very possible that it will be worth $50 billion, which is the largest leveraged buyout in history. And it worries me. It worries me. I think that's exactly what I texted you, Emmy, when I saw the news. I'm like, this doesn't seem good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you said, like, Saudi Arabia involved, and I was like, when is it not? They've been doing a lot of, like, video game acquisitioning.
What was the other one that happened recently?
Been several.
Well, partly the People's Saudi Arabia Fund, that it exists to launder their worldwide reputation, to make you pay less attention to their human rights abuses or the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. So I'm saying, hey, remember those things, perhaps. The Jared Kushner of it all in this particular buyout is also, just like the icing on the cake.
Yeah, I saw the Saudi Arabia investment piece. I didn't see the Jared Kushner investment piece, but boy, what a combo.
On the one hand, I'm like, it seems kind of possibly a good thing that a video game company will no longer be beholden to public investors, but the private investors that are going in on it actually seem worse than the idea of the public investors. So,
right.
In my uninformed on business take, but informed on video games and cultural influence take, I'm not optimistic. Anyway, that's depressing games news with Annie Nazzaro.
I'm interested to see what happens if that goes through the lens of The Sims, which is the only EA franchise that I play, which I play maybe once every 2 years for like 40 hours straight, and then I disregard for another year.
That's the best way to play Sims, I feel.
Yeah.
So we'll see. In better gaming news, Hades 2 is out for real. Emmy, you've been playing the 1.0, right?
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Good. I'm having fun. I'm having a great time. It's given me a needed break from Silksong, because I was getting frustrated, because I'm not good at Silksong, but I have played 150 hours of Hades 2 in early access, which means that despite my relatively low skill, I can beat the shit out of almost everything in Hades because I'm very powered up, and all of my nocturnal arms are very powered up with the aspects I enjoy, and I know my builds that I really like and I go for. So, but it does feel like there's a lot, like having the story completed, like, has definitely reinvigorated my interest in it, and I'm having a lot of fun.
I haven't touched it since 1.0 dropped, but I will be playing it soon, because me and Robin are planning on streaming some on Wednesday. This may be extraneous information by the time it comes out anyway. And I am so excited to see what they've done with the story. I'm just afraid that it will be toothless in the way that I fear the endings of...
suspected that you were gonna say that was your fear.
It's always my fear.
See, I
Bite
like
me
that.
a little. Bite me a little. That's what I keep telling my fiction.
Annie wants pain.
Yeah, but in a fun way.
Yeah. Well, see, some of the things I love about Hades is it's like we don't need to like stick to the tragic ending of many Greek myths.
Mm-hmm.
What if they got to be happy instead?
I do
And I'm like,
enjoy.
what if they got to be happy instead?
I don't mind their fix-it approach to it's like the fix-it trope in fan fiction where
Yeah.
they're like, hey, this thing was a tragedy in the story where we left off, but what if we took it and we made it better in the afterlife? That's fine to me. But in their original aspects of their own tales with their own OCs, because it's essentially what Zagreus and Melinoe are, I still think they go a little toothless, and so I'm kind of wondering what V 1.0 will reveal for me in that regard.
I think there could be a lot more emotional angst along the way. Like, it doesn't feel like anything actually bad ever happens, but I think that it could do with a little more. I mean, that's what, like, makes, like, an angst-heavy romance or fan fiction so good is, like, when they get to the happy ending, it's like they've really been through a lot.
The payoff feels
That-
greater
yeah,
because you've gone
yeah.
from so low to so high. Anyway, I suppose we'll probably end up doing a State of Hades 2 along with a State of Silksong as we both play through at one point or another when we check in. Now we can get into Blueprints Part 2, but we'll come back to Silksong later. So here we are once again. Presumably, you have listened to our previous episode talking about blueprints up to the credits rolling on finding room 46, which is the stated main goal of blueprints. Once you do that, you get your inheritance according to Herbert Sinclair, and then according to us, the real story begins. Because there's so much that happens after room 46 that I feel like has not really been talked about because it takes so long to do it. And recently there were a couple of reviews that came out that talk about the post game and how it feels. So we'll talk about those a bit as well. But we wanted to make this part 2 for people like us, the late game freaks, the ones who obsessed for hours over the increasingly complicated puzzles that arise after room 46. So here we are. Emmy, how are you feeling today about blueprints?
I have a lot of mixed feelings about blueprints. Just talking about Room 46, I do think it was a wise decision to have that be an explicit goal and then roll credits after that. Even as much as it feels like that's like maybe a third of the game versus, 2/3 or maybe even like 3/4 of the game feels like it happens after credits. But I think that the game is better when it has a very explicit goal that you're working towards. And then when you lose that goal, it can become frustrating. But we can talk about whether or not that's intentional.
We can. I think, yes, it was good to have that explicit goal from the beginning. And I think that also lent itself to how people talked about it online early on, which was posting screenshots of the final build that got you to room 46 saying that they rolled credits, considering it more of a checkpoint. Well, more of an end game than what it really is within the context of the game, which is a checkpoint. It was helpful. And then after that, you kind of have to decide what you're going to prioritize. So our previous strategy of making lists and saying, okay, this is what I'm trying to build toward, I think helped for that in our metagaming way. But the game doesn't exactly hand you a goal like that again for a lot of the time.
Again, I have a lot of mixed feelings on it. In some ways, I love that. In a way, it feels very expansive. Like, almost the way that an open world game might, even though that's very much not what this game is. But because there's so many things that, like, you might find just through the process of doing runs over and over again. Like, I didn't have all of the rooms in the room directory until well after room 46, especially because, like, I don't know, I missed several things that then we were talking about it. We compared our lists of found floor plans. I was like, whoops, I'm missing a bunch. Especially as someone who, like, has an issue where when I play games, I will double check things. And so in some ways, the game, like, reinforces that habit of mine that, like, becomes sort of ritualized. And at some point I was like, is this unhealthy for me?
Agreed. Especially because there are also certain rooms, which we learned later, will change over time in unpredictable ways. And I mean specifically the Lost and Found, because there was a late game puzzle that we'll get to that I only figured out how to start solving because of an item that appeared in the Lost and Found, but it was very random and lucky that I happened upon it at that time with that item in it. So we've been talking a lot about how satisfying it was to solve the big puzzles. So I think that maybe it's good to, if we get into what those big puzzles actually were.
Yeah, sorry, let's ground ourselves in what's actually happening in the late game.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the post Room 46 puzzles, and these are puzzles that you can definitely begin or encounter before completing Room 46, but there's a lot about them that you kind of can't complete fully without the information you get from there, or that don't get unlocked till afterward. So that's where we're making the distinction. For context, throughout the path to Room 46, you can often encounter these safes in the house, which hold red letters that are either to or from Herbert Sinclair, and they contain a lot of info about how your mother Mary disappeared and what sort of like anti-government activities she could have been involved in, and then also a blackmail scheme to Herbert Sinclair. That was something that I was reading on my way to Room 46, so you get a bit of context for some of the stuff that comes after if you do it that way. But one thing you encounter in Room 46 that you wouldn't have encountered beforehand is a guide to the sanctum doors. So, as a reminder, when you reach Room 46, or in the process of reaching Room 46, there's a basement room called the sanctum that has the lever to open the Room 46 door. And on either side of that lever, it's flanked by 4 doors. And they are locked. Like, no key that you have so far would have opened them. There's a guide in Room 46 to where those keys are located. So a lot of the next thing that I focused on were finding sanctum keys and opening those doors, which leads you to another puzzle.
Yeah, I was less focused on the red letters when I was getting to Room 46. I think because I was so dialed in on Room 46, I was like, let's just keep going there. I'm not getting super distracted, especially since there is a clue at some point that basically says you shouldn't need this to get to Room 46. And so I mostly ignored the red letters. I think I had 2 when I reached Room 46. So my first task going back to Room 46 was I was focusing on those red letters, which I think also led me to delay on getting sanctum keys. The first sanctum key I got was the one in the reservoir room. Because the first way I reached the tunnel room where you can get to the sanctum was by lowering the reservoir to the right level to sail across, because I hadn't unlocked the basement. So we were really focused on, like, there's clearly a hole that, like, you can get to. So we were, like, obsessed with, like, what's behind the hole. And, like, I didn't even think about the sanctum keys. I took a picture of the note in Room 46 and I was like, I don't know what this is in reference to. I think because I didn't pay that much attention to the fact that the room is named the sanctum. Because when I first got the sanctum key in the reservoir, I was like, I don't know what to do with this.
Oh no.
And it took me going back there. By that point, I did have the basement unlocked. So I just left the reservoir at the level that I could get to the room.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't that big a deal to go back and get it.
I guess it was the combo of I knew it was called the sanctum, like I'd noticed that when I went in, and then also the fact that I'd already found the red letters, so I was kind of looking for something else to uncover. And then the note in Room 46, which is on the desk. It's one of the only things in there aside from the blue crown, the blueprint's crown, which gives you a cool power in navigating the rest of the house. And I was like, oh, this is a drawing of the doors down there. And it's telling me where to find the keys, so I will go find the keys. I was like, yay, instructions. I actually encountered a sanctum key pretty early on before ever getting close to the sanctum itself, and I just had to let it disappear because I was like, that's interesting. I kind of forgot about it until I moved on and was like, oh, that was a key to something. And it was the one in the mechanarium, the
Oh, yes.
mechanarium. And the way that room works, you unlock it sort of later. That room will spawn extra doors depending on what sort of like gear slash workshop type rooms that you have in the house. So if you have like all of them or a lot of them, it becomes full of doors, and behind one of those doors will be a sanctum key.
Yeah, I ran into that one early too,
Yeah.
and I had to revisit it to get it later.
And then the one that gave me the most trouble, I know this one didn't for you, but the one that gave me the most trouble was unlocking it from the family vault because you need to get like 4 vault keys in before it'll show up. And I just never ever had a vault key and the family vault at the same time for so long. That was where I got
Yeah.
screwed over by the
I think
RNG.
the coat check is so clutch in the late game. Like, you can't do a whole lot without it because you need to be saving items. But the coat check at first was one of my least drafted rooms. Like before I hit room 46, because I was at no point was I like, this is a thing I need for next time. Sometimes it was like, I think I had the lucky rabbit's foot in there for a long time, and I just was like, I don't care. But I think it was like I would draft it as soon as possible post room 46.
You're right about the late game thing, because there are certain things like tools or whatever that I would want to put away. Early on, I mostly used it for the key card because I didn't know any workarounds, and I was like, I will definitely need this for later. Then you learn some workarounds. And it's not as expensive of an item anymore.
I'm curious about how many permanent upgrades you had when you hit room 46. I actually meant permanent additions, like the Westgate being unlocked. I think I probably had like Westgate unlocked, Gem Cavern, Blackbridge Grotto.
I had all of that except for the Blackbridge Grotto. I forget exactly what leads to opening that up, but it took me a while.
That's the power connection to the lab.
Oh, yeah, that one took me forever as well because just, yet again, RNG. I was like, please, anything. Some electricity. I'm dying. My crops are withering.
That was when I was really, really focused on, because it was, I think anything where I'm like, I know I need a specific run set up and I like have the knowledge for this thing. I know, like I figured out the clue for it as soon as I was like the first time I was in the lab, and so it was always like, can I do it this run?
Yeah,
and
I figured out the clue too. That one was a pretty like easy deciphering. It was just about begging the gods to take mercy on you, and the gods of Mount Holly saying no.
When I have all of that, where I'm like, I know I have all of the knowledge, I become really focused in on that singular goal compared to like, oh, maybe I'll get it this run. And if I like, it was sort of my only goal, which I think worked well for me, focusing on like singular goals for periods of time rather than trying to track like the 5 concurrent goals that I might have in a given run. And that's why, again, I think this game really benefits from having the goal of room 46, and then it can become challenging when you don't have a clear goal in the end game, because you start to get, at least for me, I started to get overwhelmed with just tracking the number of pieces I had in my mind. And like we were talking about having to-do lists, but even then it's like I have a hard time prioritizing. So it's helpful when the game provides you that top level, like this is the main goal.
I think this is where the Pepe Sylvia bit started to come in, because there were so many items to keep track of that I almost wished I had a wall of them with clues pinned and question marks and string. And I did have a couple of notebooks that sort of ended up looking like that. But it was a lot to keep track of. So once you find all the sanctum keys, there are 8, then you can open up each of the doors in the sanctum, and those lead to another puzzle. That other puzzle is figuring out and then arranging the sigils of each realm in the world, which you can learn through multiple means throughout the house. But the means that I found most helpful was inspecting postage stamps on letters that you can make arrive through experiments to your mailroom. Uh, I really loved that this detail was helpful. It just took me so long to come to it that I was really tearing my hair out about the realm sigils before then.
Yeah, that was a hot tip from you for sure, was the stamps. And the stamps are quite charming. The other thing is once I realized what letters did, that they were like huge hints, I started to be like, I actually don't want letters because I don't want these huge hints. I would rather figure it out myself. And then I started like adding a bunch.
Sorry, you mean specifically letters from Randolph that come to the
Yes,
mailroom are huge
sorry.
hints?
The mailroom letters have huge hints in them where he basically just tells you the answer to some puzzles, which I think is a nice option for people that are struggling to figure it out. And yet also doing that is so varied in terms of like if you actually want there to be like a helpful hint system, it's so varied in terms of what to do that at that point people are just looking up what to do if they need that help, which I think is sort of a bummer.
I did find with the letters, I liked the personality in them. I mostly found that by the time the letters arrived, I had figured out whatever thing they were telling me to do. It was way in the past. There were just a few things in there where it was like, oh, I would never have known that if Randolph didn't tell me just now. And one of those things was actually something that I ended up having to tell you about further on, which was telling you exactly how to find the observatory. Or not the observatory, exactly how to find the planetarium blueprint hidden in the observatory, which you could kind of find if you were getting really bored and observant in the observatory, but is pretty well hidden.
Yeah. I think it was one of those like you get the observatory so early on and you're not yet used to I'm like going to really look at every single corner of this room. And then by the time you're finding like hidden floor plans and stuff, I've drawn the observatory like 150 times, and it's like a in and out thing where I'm not going back and messing around with it. So it's again that experience of like getting into a flow and like assuming that you know what's going on in this room and then discovering like no, there's more here, which is exciting and also frustrating because it feels like there's just so much. And it again triggers that compulsion of like, do I need to look in every single corner and do every single thing possible? And then ultimately focusing so much on that, you start to feel like you're brute forcing it rather than like putting things together.
Right. Yeah, it did whenever I learned something new about a room, like, oh, it turns out there was this thing here the whole time that I missed and I should and it was right in front of my face. It made me feel like I needed to check everywhere all over again. Luckily, I was able to tamp that down because I was like, you know what? I found this thing because something told me to look for this thing. And if I need to find something, probably it'll come up naturally at some point. Maybe I'll finally notice it. So thankfully, I let that go. And the internet is there for the times it didn't work out. Rough times. But the realm sigils, after we looked at the stamps, were pretty easy. Like, even if you didn't get all the info you needed from the realm sigils, there were a few other clues that were pretty easy to find throughout the house, and then you could also do some process of elimination stuff. So that's how I ended up getting to complete those pretty fast.
Yeah, so you can put together the classroom clues, one of the early classroom clues for the colors of the realms. You can put together some stuff you learned in history books about like, oh, maybe it's stormy or maybe it's relies on trains. Like a lot of I think transportation stuff was maybe in history. And then you get a couple pieces of realm sigils. So you have a piece of the Araja one, I think, in the clock tower, and you have another piece of one in the Lost and Found. So I was using those to help guide, and then the stamps as well. And then once you get to the point where you know maybe 3, you can brute force it the rest of the way. And so that was generally my approach. And after getting the stamps, I finished the rest of them a lot. I have a question for you, which is what did you
Hmm?
think before you ever did the first realm sigil? What did you think would happen when you completed the realm sigil?
I figured I could move forward, but I had no idea what would happen. I figured I would just get something to tell me. So, for context, for this puzzle in room 46, there is also a map on the wall that you're instructed to put in the correct order according to like visits by Herbert Sinclair when he was young to each of the 8 countries. So, by doing the realm sigils, you unlock information about the order in which that he visited these countries through some delightful postcards. And then once you've unlocked them all, or rather once you've unlocked enough of them, you can figure out the order that he visited, and then that'll open up some new information for you and yet another puzzle. So I thought that it would have something to do with each country. I didn't know what I was meant to encounter afterward. Why do you ask?
I thought I thought that it maybe would allow me to teleport somewhere.
Oh, why?
And I was feeling, I don't know. I think it's because it reminds me of the God of War fast travel system where you can travel, or it's not really the fast travel, but you can travel between different realms in God of War, the newer, the like recent God of War, by moving this big like ship's wheel kind of rotation. So I think the combination of it being realms and like having that circular kind of mechanism in my head made me think like, oh my god, what if you can get off the estate? Which was something that was always in the back of my head of like, what if you can get into town? Like, how crazy would it be if there
Mm,
was like this other map?
maybe you're just more optimistic than me because I never for a second thought they'd actually let me off the property. I mean, I would
I'm
look at the
trapped here.
yes, like I was looking at the car and I was like, I have the keys. Simon is a teenage boy. Absolutely, he'd get in this car and drive it through the gate or something. Let's go, but not an option.
Yeah,
Not an
that was
option
another thing
anywhere.
I thought finding the car keys. I was like, am I going to be able to drive the car? But
And the
alas.
answer was no.
But like that does feel like it's something they might do or that could
Another location.
happen. Yeah. Not like
I
they're
mean,
going to
I
add it, but like throughout the game, I think enough surprises you that it's like, yeah, this could happen.
I was sort of hoping for it and was a little disappointed that it wasn't something that happened, particularly because you do learn a lot about Reddington, and there are certain books that you can read that tell you about the markets and certain places. And then you also learn a lot about the museum grounds where the crown of the country was stolen from. So I thought maybe we would get to go there as well. But no, I was less hopeful, I guess, about it, even though I thought it might be hinted at.
So the realm sigils were once I solved the first one, I was a little disappointed because there's not much there besides, and you do get really important hints to solve the that puzzle in room 46, the 8 realms in 8 months.
8 realms in 8 months.
But yeah, I was gonna say in 8 days. I was like, I think that would be too fast. So you get good clues there, but I just thought that it was gonna be more revelatory.
So we're getting a little bogged down in the details of the Sanctum Keys puzzle and then the realm sigils. So I'm just going to run through big picture what the puzzles were post Room 46 after that, and then we'll talk a lot about how we felt about getting through all of those and some of the moments of delight and the moments of despair. So for me, after completing the realm sigils, the next thing I did was do a puzzle that included something about the natural order of angels because the realm sigils, once you find the correct order of visits, it opens up a hole in the wall that reveals the original deed to the estate as passed to Lady Arave, who was Herbert's mother, and then also Herbert's actual final last will and testament. There is a clue in there about the natural order of angels and the tomb. And since we know the angel statues are in the tomb, you have to go figure out what each statue corresponds to for their real name. And then once you put in the natural order of angels down in the tomb, it opens up a secret passage where you can find the original manuscripts of books your mother wrote, including the original manuscripts to The Red Prince and the original manuscript to A New Clue, which is a book that you can purchase access to put into your library. A New Clue and then the unlocked version of The New Clue elaborate on each other about how to solve one of the next big puzzles, which includes stuff with Blackbridge, Grotto, the microchips, and the throne room. Emmy, would you give a rundown of those? Because I feel like you actually did that a lot more organically than I did. I gave up and looked some stuff up.
I was doing a lot of runs focusing on info in A New Clue. So there's the street signs, which reveal one message by looking at the train stations, and then there's also the small numbers on the page, which indicate a coded message from multiple different books. And once you put that together, I believe that is what tells you to dig next to the bridge by the outer room. So that one I felt really good about, because I did do that all on my own, besides learning that there were small numbers that I had missed with my magnifying glass.
Yeah, that's the one that I looked up. That was the third microchip I found, and it made me really mad, mostly because once I looked at the clues in A New Clue, I understood what I was supposed to do, and then was like, oh, but I don't wanna. So, because it involved going to 6 different rooms that were corner rooms and looking at the notes or books in there and then finding the italicized word and then putting those together in a certain order. And I didn't take as many of the screenshots of those as I maybe could have.
A lot of them also are ones that don't even look like notes that are left for you by the inhabitants of the house, because at least one of them, if not 2 or 3, are notes about how to play the game. And so it really, again, plays into that, like, well, you've seen this already and you have to revisit it. Fortunately for me, most of those rooms were pretty common at that point. I had adjusted their rarity. So that was fun for me because it gave more purpose to my runs. The third that I had to look up was the vases that you have to smash, because I just didn't it was another one of those, like, I've been in this room a million times and I haven't looked closely. You don't get like an action identifier until you have a sledgehammer, and you're rarely like slowly looking around for things to touch unless you're once again looking at every single thing all the time. So I just had to look that one up, even though there is a clear clue in it, in the new clue. And I was like, I'm sure this is a clue. I cannot figure it out for the life of me.
That one is the one I did figure out. I did not look it up. Luckily, I had a hammer that day, saw the thing, and was like, what if I can break those? However, it did then make me paranoid that there was a bunch of stuff in the house that was breakable, and I just missed it somehow. So then I spent a lot of time with the hammer, whenever I had it, going up to various busts, like in the foyer, and seeing if I could smash any of them. And no.
Which is just not that fun. Yeah. No. It's exciting when you get one, but it oftentimes you don't, and then it's just frustrating. It feels like busy work.
However, getting all of the microchips and putting them in that plinth in the Blackbridge Grotto is so cool and satisfying.
Yeah, it's exciting. I actually did the satellite dish first, because I was like, I'm really interested in knowing, because I had that open by the time before I had 3 microchips. So I was like, I'm going to go put them in the sundial first, because I'm just really excited about it. But then, yes, you also get a really cool, dramatic cutscene when you open the Blackbridge Grotto door.
Yeah, I was really losing it. It made me feel like Indiana Jones. Like I was an archaeologist uncovering things that nobody had seen for hundreds of years, which isn't true because something was placed there for you, but you reach the ruins of like a beautiful castle, and it contains a secret floor plan called the throne room, and that unlocks a new puzzle.
Yes, you get the throne room black print, and that we wanted to talk about a little bit, because I think the throne room is one of those, I now have a new big goal. Like, I want to turn the throne room into the Blue Prince throne room. What is it?
Yeah,
Blue
but we didn't know that
throne?
That's what it was gonna do.
I did, but it was only because I was looking up something else that I accidentally saw it. So I knew that you could do that, but I didn't know all the steps.
So all I knew going into the throne room was what it says on the black print, which is so the throne room, in terms of what it does and how it looks, is that it's actually a pretty clutch addition to the drafting pool because it has three doors. It also has a lever in it that opens the room 46 door in the antechamber, which is great because it means if you have the throne room, you don't have to go all the way down to the sanctum and then back up to get room 46 open. And it also has a message on it, a direction, finally, a goal. It says, reclaim the throne on it. It doesn't tell you what the conditions of reclaiming the throne are, but like from that, you can tell it must have something to do with bringing these things to the throne room. There are several ways to figure out what you're supposed to do to reclaim the throne. One of them I saw as a spoiler, so that's how I was able to figure out where we should go from there on one of them, but the others I was able to figure out from the context clues.
Yeah, I forgot that the main one is the antechamber in the outer room, which we were both very excited about.
Yeah. I didn't start doing that until you told me to start using the blessing of the monk. So this is where we were collaborating more, and there is an outer room that you can pull that's a shrine, and each day when you get the shrine, you can put in a certain amount of money to get a certain blessing for a number of days. The more money it is, the longer it'll last. And there is a book that tells you what all the blessings are and what they'll do. There were a few that I just always went for, like the blessing of the gardener for more gems, or the blessing of the dancer, which let you rotate rooms. I saw the blessing of the monk listed in there and thought, that's neat, and then never used it. But the blessing of the monk allows you to, if you end the day in a room within the house, a normal blueprint of the manor, the next day that will be an option to draft in the outer room. I mean, how did you end up doing that? Like starting with the blessing of the monk? Because I genuinely was ignoring it, didn't even think to use it for anything.
This may have been one of the things I looked up because one of my big goals was I want to unlock her ladyship's diary, which again involves you've got to light some torches, you get a key from a secret room, and then of course you have to actually draft her ladyship's bedroom, which requires specific circumstances as well. All of that to say, I got there and I was a little disappointed because most of what's in there is about the rooms that you sleep in, or you can end your day in and get various effects as her like sleep diary. However, there's a sketch in the back that shows the outer room, and at first I was like, is this just showing where the outer room is? Because you should know that by now for sure. And we talked about it a lot, trying to figure it out.
Oh, we were on the phone because I remember you'd already seen all this stuff. You'd already seen all this stuff. You opened up the diary before I did. So then we were on the phone when I was opening up the diary and we got to that sketch. And I was like, that's the outer room. Oh, but there are doors leading off it. And then you were like, there are doors leading off it. So then you started telling me, what if we drafted rooms from the house into the outer room that possibly the doors might lead somewhere?
Yes.
So we started
and I
testing
think, what
doors.
was the one that the first one that you did? Might have been a courtyard or the Great Hall, something like that.
Yeah, I think I accidentally did the Great Hall first, but that didn't get me anywhere. Like there was no door that it led to that was useful because all of the doorways would just be caved in. But then there were a couple that actually did reveal some things.
Yeah, some of them are really cool. Like, I want to do every single one in the outer room eventually.
I would have loved to do that if I actually felt like I had the stamina for it in the course of this game. One that I did pull out there kind of early without realizing it was like part of the puzzle was the treasure room. Am I remembering the name correctly? You know what I'm talking about? The treasure vault.
Yes. Oh, you need to do that to get the royal scepter.
Yeah. So you later learn that. I didn't think that was what it was gonna do. So I pulled it and then was like, huh, because something changed about the room once it was out there. And then I just had to kind of put it aside because I definitely didn't do all the steps I was supposed to do first before completing that. But one of the things, yes, that ends up being super cluey about how to reclaim the throne is if you pull the antechamber into the outside. it pretty much specifically, like, now that I think about the sketch seemed to be like of the antechamber.
Yes, yeah.
And then it leads you into a room that looks like the shrine, where it's holding a note that basically tells you, like, get these items into the throne room, including one that might have been unexpected, but
Yes.
is the cursed effigy. And you can only unlock the cursed effigy if you buy a certain book about a certain sad folk tale from the past of the country, and then you read that book, and then that cursed effigy will appear in the shrine for you to gather when it's time.
No, that's
Hmm?
not exactly right. You get the book, which then unlocks it in the store. You have to buy cursed coffers, and then it will appear in the shrine.
It's true, I did
Yes.
skip a step. I just had it for so long. I did all that stuff without knowing it would actually lead anywhere. I mean, I just wanted to read books, so I bought every book
Yeah, yeah.
and so on.
The cursed coffers in the store made me bananas because once again, one of those things of like, I've bought everything in the store. There's nothing except for Dirigiblocks, which we know is like not in the game yet. It's coming in a later patch. So like I don't need to look at it again. And then whoops, this was here the whole time because I'd had the book for a while and I just didn't check. So now I need to check every single time. What if something new happened? And it drives you crazy.
Yeah. I mean, luckily for me, I guess, by the time I got the cursed like coffer available, I also still needed to buy the blue tents memos upgrade, so I was always like kind of looking at it anyway, and then I noticed that it appeared. But it would be nice to know that there if there was like a notification like something has changed. uh,
Yeah.
when you enter a room, that would probably be a nice little quality of life thing.
Yeah.
So, in any case, you learn through all of these context clues that in order to reclaim the throne, you need the crown, which you already know how to get because it's in room 46 whenever you draft it. The cursed effigy, which is a little complicated because when you pick it up, you get cursed, which partly means that you are reduced to having only 13 steps. So you basically have 12 movements in which to get where you need to go, i.e., the throne room. And then the scepter. And the scepter is complicated to acquire. I mean, you
Yes,
did
this
a
is
lot more
another
of that.
outer room.
Well, you did a lot more of that because it's not just about the outer room. So, like the treasure room, when you pull it to the outer room, spawns a box that requires a specific key to open to get the scepter. And getting the key
Yes.
is a long, stressful process that we definitely ended up looking
Yes.
up some of the answers to.
Yes. It also like I got the treasure trove really early on. I might have that might have been one of the ones that you were missing of found floor plans, whereas I was missing several of the like the planetarium and lost and found.
Yeah.
But so I almost always drafted the treasure room anyways because I was like, yeah, give me 150 gold at this point because each time you draft the treasure trove, it adds +5 coins that you can collect, and that has a locked box in it you can open with a normal key that has a series of complicated memos that may or may not be true, and I just eventually ignored those. But one of them that's quite important is that it's something like the true treasure of this room is outside this room. Basically a
Yeah.
very opaque hint to say you need to draft it in the outside room. And again, I think this is something that I eventually looked up. But yes, once you draft the treasure trove in the outer room, which again you could do through the blessing of the monk, you have to get the Arch Ares key to unlock the treasure box that is in the outer room. And to do that, you need to do a
The
castle
castle.
move in the
I was going to say
chess
the castle
puzzle.
cipher.
Yes, so there's also the castle cipher. There's a breakable wall there's a chess puzzle room. There's a breakable wall in there that has castle written like an acrostic and blank lines afterwards. And so there are many different places. And this was one of my big goals and why I ended up hearing about a lot of these things rather than figuring it out is because I was working through like where are those things I like really want to figure this out. I have most of them and I just need some hints for where the other ones are. And by that, it was because it was part of a larger puzzle, I ended up seeing more information about that rather than figuring out myself. But again, I think my takeaway with this game is like once you hit a certain point,
I definitely switched from like I want to figure it out all by myself to I'm fine with looking this up. And I had a lot more fun once I was okay with that. Although I really feel for the guides writers for this because they have a lot there for the post game, and I don't know how I would have done that without existing guides.
I was going to say, it's also wild, even when we were looking at like post-game Steam forums, there's a big like late game questions like a forum that we will link because I think that it's a really good little community to take a look through. They solved all that stuff like a week in. We were playing it for months after the game came out. So they must not have day jobs or just a lot of extra time on their hands, and I admire that.
Or they require less sleep than we require.
Right. I require quite a bit of sleep. So props to them. Difficult times. Yeah, I didn't solve the castle cipher myself. I think I depended on you to get me the answers for that eventually, because I was having enough trouble as it was just castling to start things off. Because once you castle, it opens a secret passage, leads down to this crypt-like room, and that's where the castle cipher, whatever you learn from it, will come into play. But it also, that room holds a bunch of Morajai boxes where once you solve them, it presents you like a riddle of the conditions that you have to meet for that room once you have also solved the castle cipher. So
yes. So it's castle cipher basically only comes into play once you've solved all these other things because it is the information you need to input into what is revealed. So let's back up for a second because the thing you need to do to unlock that room is perform a castle move. A castle move is when you switch a rook and the king in chess. And so what you need to do in the game is to move from the king power to the rook power or vice versa. And that opens a door. Fortunately, I was always using the king power because it's really good. It lets you choose rooms to make more common. So it was straightforward for me. I just had to do the chess puzzle again and get the rook. And then that opens the door. You go through the door, more Ajai boxes, reveals a message that you need to do something I don't even remember, honestly. And that reveals a clock where you can input the information from the castle cipher, which then finally gives you the Arch Ares key, which you can take to put in the box in the outer room, which gives you the royal scepter, which is part of reclaiming the throne.
So knowing all of this, let's run this down for a second. Everything that you actually need on the correct day to unlock the throne room. You need to have the cursed effigy available to you, and it can't be in the outer room because you need the outer room to be the throne room that day. So you have to put the cursed effigy in the coat check. And you have to make sure the coat check gets drafted, and if possible, drafted as close as possible to the throne room, because you're going to need to move it from the throne room, or from the coat check to the throne room. Throne room, or not throne room, treasure room needs to be the outer room, because you need the box there to unlock it. You also need to have done the castle puzzle and solved the castle cipher, so that you're ready to go in the area where the key will be available. You have to follow all of the required instructions from the Morajai boxes, which include being in that room with no coins, no gems, and no items at a certain time of day. It has to be at the sacred hour, which we established from previous puzzles is 1:30 p.m. So that also means there's a certain thing you just have to wait. You just have to like get yourself ready to go and then wait in that room. And I remember, were we on the phone when you were just waiting?
Yes. Yeah, I was like, I don't want to mess this up. So I'll correct you just slightly because it is slightly easier than you're describing, which is that you don't have to have the treasure trove in the outer room that day. You just need to, like, once you get the Arch Ares key, you can just put it in the coat check and then draft the treasure trove later. So it's slightly less complicated of like, and again, the room is open permanently. So you can always like go back on another day and get it later. And that stays, all the things stay up once you've done it once. So it's not quite as complicated, but it's still very complicated. It's mostly you have to follow. So again, this is in order to get the Arch Ares key to get to the treasure trove box.
Okay, true. So maybe I was just being an overachiever because that's how I ended up doing it. I did it all at once.
Yeah, it's nice if you can do it all in one day. But yeah, what you need is you also need a specific constellation, I believe. You need to see a specific constellation in the sky. You need no
Yes.
gems, no keys, or no gems, no keys, no items, I believe, no gold. One of those is wrong. You're allowed to have one of those 4 things and then be there at 1:30. And I was like, I have these things. I did it as fast as possible. I am not, and I forgot to check the time before I went in too. So I was like, I have no idea how long I have to wait. But I was just sitting there on the phone while my boyfriend did something because he had long moved on at this point. And I was just talking to you while you did other stuff. And I think it probably took like a full 45 minutes because I did it very fast on the day where I finally got the things I needed. But man, when that plinth rises, that is a good feeling.
It is. So, first off, this creepy ass room, by the way, has a plinth or looks like a coffin in the middle of the room. And then beyond that, there's a wall painting, which clearly looks like a door, like it slides away or up or whatever, of an old man. Looks like the portrait of Dorian Gray. We don't know if that does slide away because it has nothing to do with this. You can assume it was the last king of the Orinda Ares line, I think. It's kind of implied, especially by the tomb. But in any case,
and he's
he's
sitting
looking
in
at
that
you.
chair, the famous
same
chair.
Yes. So it's at least implied, but he looks at you as suddenly this plinth that looks like a tomb begins to rise, and then it reveals a clock. And then you have to follow the quote-unquote instructions of the castle cipher, which also involves actually translating a Rajin.
Yes.
Which you needed to learn anyway if you want to uncover a certain note in the tomb, which is another mystery that never gets solved, at least in this game. And then you get the key. And then you can open up the treasure trove, and then you get the scepter. And I guess it automatically makes it so that the scepter is available whenever you draft the treasure trove. So you can do all of this on a later day.
You never need to do that again. It could just, anytime you draft it, it will then be on top of it. And sometimes I was like, I do not want it, actually, but I am not going to carefully pick up all of my hundreds of coins.
Oh yeah, sometimes I would accidentally pull it.
Yes, so the scepter has a power where you can choose which color to prioritize for rooms. So if you pick yellow, you will draw more shop rooms. That is also what the power of the king piece is, and that was the one I had for most of the game. So I just preferred having that because I didn't even need to pick anything up. And then the scepter is annoying because you can hang on to it if you end the day in a room of that color, but you don't get to re-choose what the color is. So sometimes I was like, I actually don't want more of this color or of any particular color, which would be why I didn't want to pick it up. It's also a good clue if you haven't done the realm sigils at that point, which I'm like, is it even possible? I guess it is technically possible to have not done the realm sigils at that point. Now you like very clearly know which color matches with which symbol for the realms because it has it on the scepter.
Right. So once you have all of those items available in your home, and presumably you have drafted your coat check or your throne room close enough to wherever the cursed effigy is that you don't die of exhaustion and end the day before you complete it, you have to bring the crown, the scepter, and the cursed effigy into the throne room. And before I ask you a question about how you went about this, the clue that the draft of the Red Prince contains regarding all of this is that, different from the final draft, there's a drawing of the Red Prince sitting on the throne, holding the scepter and the cursed effigy, like very clearly wearing the crown. So that's how you would know, at least from that. I didn't unlock those drafts, though, until after we'd reclaimed the throne. So
yeah, I didn't unlock those drafts for a real long time until you told me to revisit that letter. I didn't see them until I saw another draft of another book, which I think probably did have the cursed effigy in it, maybe. I'd have to go look at it again.
Mm. So for the blue prince, or for the claiming of the blue throne, I didn't realize that you're apparently required to set everything to blue. But I set the scepter to blue because I thought it looked nicest. And then I went into the room, and that's what works. But did you do that at first, or did you have to set it to something different?
That, I believe, was something that I knew about from looking at a guide about something else. So I already knew that in the back of my head. But the other thing I wanted to do, and I think I probably would have to start a new game to try it, and I think people have tried it and nothing has happened, is you can get a red crown, the red paper crown. You can set the scepter to red. And so I'm curious what would happen if you go into the throne room with red crown, red scepter, and cursed effigy.
The ghost of Herbert Sinclair would burst out of his tomb and haunt you for the
Be
rest of
no,
your days if you did
you
it.
haven't learned anything.
No, your inheritance was contingent on you believing the same things I did politically, which is an interesting take, but is kind of what's in the will. That was super satisfying though, because by that time, first off, it was just a lot of work, but also by that time we had spent a lot of time on the phone together playing and talking through this game and getting to this point and encouraging each other while we were sitting and waiting or sitting super frustrated that the castle cipher wasn't going well. So yeah, that cutscene, really, really cool, beautiful cutscene. You become the Blue Prince. I mean, I think I did the Reclaiming the Throne before you did. So I was waiting for you to get that cutscene.
Yeah.
It was a really
but I
good
wasn't
cutscene.
I wasn't super far behind you. I think that was just
No.
like I was having a hard time getting the throne room for whatever reason. And when I finally did, I was blessedly close to the coat check. So it was easy in that case. Once I finally got it, that was where my luck was failing me, and your luck was pretty good. But
The one time.
yeah.
So then when you reclaim the throne, it all turns blue and it becomes a blue throne room. And then it sets up a new mini game for you, which I completed without knowing it would actually have useful consequences. But there's a Mora Jai box that you can complete. It is your great grandmother. What do we call Lady Arave? Great aunt? Great aunt?
No, she's your great grandmother still.
It's true. Okay, she's your great grandmother. It's a variation on the Mora Jai puzzle of her own invention that includes a blue tile for Mount Holly. And the minigame this unlocks is if you make an unbroken string of 8 blue rooms in a mansion, it will permanently unlock all doors that have a Mount Holly sigil on it. And I was like, cool. Haven't seen any of those doors,
Where are
but
those?
they probably exist. So that was something new to look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, I think when the game gives you an explicit objective, it's like, I'm doing that. I have a clear thing I need to do. I'm doing that.
Right. So I did that pretty early and then didn't discover those doors for quite a while. But then
yeah, it's
after
not super
that,
hard to do.
no, especially if you have a blue scepter or something.
Yeah.
But after that, my new obsession became unlocking and then uncovering all of the blue memos, because you can get a very expensive upgrade in the shop that spawns a blue memo in any blue room that you draft on the 8th level of the house. And so I was like, guess I have to do this for all 40 whatever rooms. This is the point where Emmy and I made a Google Doc, because it was teamwork the whole way, because we didn't want to have to draft. I did a lot, but not most. I think it was honestly the classroom ones that like finally clinched it. But those blue memos revealed a lot of very interesting things, including and most importantly the existence of something called the family core. And then there was a whole new puzzle to solve.
Each time we I think maybe at least 4 times we were like, we knew we wanted to talk about this game because we did have a lot of fun with it. And we were every time in the post game, we were like, we're so close to the end of this puzzle. Like, we're about to record, but I think we should wait until we do it. And then it was like, fuck, there's a new puzzle. Now we have to finish that. And it was like, well, should we just record? And it's like, but now we're so close to the end of that puzzle after another week. And this happened like another several times.
It was so painful.
Eventually it was like, okay, we think we've done everything, almost everything there is to do in the game, at least according to the massive thread on the Steam forums. And we can safely feel that we've done enough.
And so while we were working on the family core idea, or rather while we were working on the blue tents memos, more memos would pop up, another interesting factoid. Sometimes it was just stuff that we already knew and had figured out, but other times it would say, oh, like what's it called? That flower constellation isn't the biggest constellation. And then we were both sitting there like, well, fuck. Now we just have to get a lot
No,
more
the
stars.
inkwell. Yeah, the inkwell.
Oh yeah,
isn't
the inkwell.
biggest
The inkwell is what we
constellation.
think is the largest one at 50 stars. But nope, they said keep going. So throughout, we were also trying to build up stars. And then there was also the tunnel, which, Emmy, would you like to talk about the tunnel? I feel like it's your
I
favorite.
was obsessed with the tunnel. I was like, because I've been obsessed with the tunnel since the fucking beginning. Since the very beginning, I was like, I wonder if you can get these boxes out of here. Which is why I was so amped about the satellite dish, because the satellite dish enables you to download a new packet of experiments for the lab, which also is a really nice refresher. Like, it just gives you new stuff, and it's nice to change the game later. But the one I was primarily focused on was it was at a point where I would just quit and restart the game if I didn't get the lab quickly. So, or a room with a computer so I could connect to the lab, because what I wanted every time was just start early in the lab with that experiment. I'm so focused on removing the boxes. And you actually, for whatever reason, got further with the boxes than I did, maybe just luck, and then stopped because you thought you had seen everything there was to see in the tunnel. And
I got a key.
Yeah.
It was cool, so I was like, all right.
But there were still boxes.
Yeah, so I stopped. Well, I didn't take out enough crates to glimpse that there was a door at the end of the tunnel. If I had done that, then I would have completely cleared them, but there were enough crates left where I was like, well, I found the thing they wanted me to find because I'm an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was, again, one of those things where the completionist urge comes in, and it's like, well, I'm gonna remove every damn box because, like, just in case. And in that case, it pays off because finally you hit a blue holly door. You might not hit it right away. So you get
not right away.
So you clear the tunnel halfway, you get a key. Is it a family vault key or is it a file cabinet key? It's a file
cabinet key.
Which allows you to unlock file cabinets. There are other file cabinet keys we can talk about.
That one specifically,
do we want to talk about that?
Well, the reason that file cabinet key specifically is important is because it's the one that unlocks. I don't know if you actually ever ended up doing this because I think I just told you.
I did. I did them all.
Okay. But it unlocks a drawer to a cabinet in the mining foreman's office down in the basement. And in there are pages that tell you how to do digital core puzzles, which becomes important for actually doing the family core and unlocking something else.
When I read the numeric core stuff, I was like, I'm not doing this shit. I'm done. I was like, I'm not doing a new kind of math puzzle. Like, I'm just fucking not. I'm so far into the billiard puzzle room. Like, it's so annoying to do to the point that it's sometimes easier to just brute force it. I'm not doing this numeric core bullshit. So Annie did all of that. But while you were focused on that, I was focused on clearing out the rest of the boxes. Right. And once you hit the end of the tunnel, you've cleared out all the boxes. You have a regular locked door. You hit all of the kinds of doors that exist in the game. So you hit a regular locked door. You have a security door. You have a basement door, which requires the basement key. You have a brick wall you have to smash through. You have torches you need to light. And finally, you have a blue holly door.
Yep.
Which
you also forgot there's a blue holly door and there's also a red door that you have to unlock by using boiler room. That was in a blue memo, remember, too, and it said like, oh, like the there's more than one red door on the estate, and we were both like, where's the other one? Where's the other one?
Yeah.
That
one was the most annoying because the rest are permanently like opened. Like if you light the torches, it's permanently opened. If you unlock the door, it's permanently unlocked. But the red door, you have to have the boiler room in the house connected to the red power box in that current run. So that's where I was able to go through all the doors until I hit the red door, and I was like, I'm gonna throw my console out the window. But I was able to do it next time. Eventually, you get to the room behind the blue holly door. So one, very exciting to find a blue holly door and to be like, Jesus Christ, there's more than one of these. And then next, you enter a room with parlor boxes. One says there's more than one true box in this room. One says this is the end of your journey. And the other says there is no end to this journey. And I decided to open the There Is No End to This Journey box first. And in that one, there is nothing in the box. It's a cutscene happens. There's nothing in the box, but it shows Simon like looking at it closely. And so when you look at it, you see that there's a swirl in the wood of the box that is not usually the inside of the box, referencing swirls that you see all over the place. Is there no end? Does it never end? And so then I had to go back again. I had the upgrade where you get 2 billiard keys in a parlor room, so I just brought those 2 with me the next time, but you also get one in that room, and opened the other 2 boxes. There's nothing in there are 2 true boxes in this room, and there's one, the one that does have items in it, or an item in it, is This Is the End of Your Journey. It gives you the Blueprints draft. So that was the first draft I saw, because I still hadn't done the Natural Order of Angels. And in that, I think the single most important thing in that book, at least that I interpreted, was you have to look at it with a magnifying glass, the Blueprints himself working on a sign that you also can see in the workshop that says the prize is not always in the true box. So the way that I interpret that is that the prize box where the draft is not true, meaning it is not true that there is an end to your journey. If you take the middle box as true, that's one true box, and the other true box would be There Is No End to Your Journey, would be the true box.
I agree with your interpretation. I agree with that's what it's saying. But I don't know if the game then agrees with that, particularly in what it turns out the spiral does, which we can get to in a bit. But yeah, you did all of this while I was working on some family core stuff. So I did this after you. And while you were busy with that, I was gathering all the clues that eventually lead you to, unfortunately, opening up. This took forever. This took actually forever. But eventually you are told that you have to take a key with an 8 on it and use it on Vault 53 in the family vault. And that opens up a new puzzle. I screamed when I saw the note that was a new puzzle. The new puzzle was a cipher left behind by Lady Arve for her younger son Simon, that Simon had apparently spent all of his later years trying to uncover the answer to, and he never did. And then Herbert also tried, couldn't figure it out either. And it was left to us. It was left to us to figure it out. And I was cursing our great-grandmother's name, but you were still figuring out tunnel stuff when eventually I stumbled onto... So this clue, by the way, was a set of it was 16 by 16, 4 words per row, 4 rows, 4-letter words, bunch of random words. Words like fire and bail. I don't know. And I didn't know what to do with them until one day in the Lost and Found, a clue popped up and it said clue equals 3, which, by the way, apparently was something they had to patch because originally they put in a
the
word.
Wrong number.
Yeah. But so by the time I played it, it was a correct one. So I think I was on the phone with you, Emmy, when I found that and looked at that and said, oh, what if we have to find the numeric core of every one of those words, and then the number that word equals is the letter in a message, and that is what it was. I was so proud of myself.
I'm really proud of you too, because I was like, I'm not doing that shit. I'm simply not.
I had fun. After you find a number corresponding to each of the words, then you convert it to letters, and then it says still water tints blank books. And we looked at that and said, what the fuck?
Oh, I remember though, the first thing I said, so this was when we were on our like, let's draft a bunch of rooms in the outer room. You had drafted the secret passage because we thought, maybe you can
Yeah.
get through the secret passage. You can't. However, you said the only thing that's different is there is a white book. And so when you said blank books, I was like, Annie, the white book in the bookshelf. And then you also pointed out there are also blank books in the library. So there's multiple blank books.
Right. So then the next question became, okay, watering can. Let's get the watering can and try to water some books. So I was going to the library to do that first. Got the watering can, tried watering the books. No dice. Okay, still water is something specific. Where the fuck do we find still water? And I was like, what counts as still water? Like, physically still? Like, I tried to gather water from the fountain, actually, because that's pretty still looking, or from a bird bath, and it didn't let me gather the water. So that's where I got frustrated and decided to take a break by following in Emmy's footsteps and doing the tunnel, clearing that out. And then, how did you end up finding still water?
I looked it up.
Oh, cool. And then I followed you. So,
Yes. And I was like, Annie, you're going to hate it. You're going to be so mad.
yeah, it's true. And I did hate it.
Yeah. The still water is in the, like, hidden moonshine distillery behind the wall of the trading post, I believe.
Yeah, it's a trading post.
Yeah.
And luckily we'd unlocked that like a long time ago when we were blowing up walls for fun. And I really was mad. They meant water from
I
a
don't
still.
think I even realized that there was water in there.
Me neither. I never would have thought of it. That one was just mean, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's just another one of those having to look carefully at from every single angle that really starts to wear on you when you get to this point. Which, again, is why looking things up is better once you get to this point. Just, like, do what you need to do. It's the same thing with, like, bumping down difficulty in a game that's getting too hard and is, like, not fun anymore. It's like, just make it so that you can have a good time again.
You know what? I struggle with that, honestly, because I don't believe but like even in like a moral belief way of like games and what they're supposed to do and like an artist's intention and then how you're meant to experience something, and are you really experiencing the real thing if you don't do it in the way that it was intended necessarily. But all that to say, like, for example, I think that you should totally use guides for games. That's fine. I like the community aspect of people helping each other out through difficult things, whether it's strategy in beating a boss or the answer to a puzzle. But when a game is defined by its gameplay and the gameplay is entirely figuring things out, then I struggle with looking things up or letting myself look things up because it feels like I am failing at what the game itself is. Like, I'm not playing the game if I don't figure things out because the whole game is figuring things out, you know? Or if I'm playing a Dark Souls game type, like a Souls-like on easy, then I'm not really playing the game because kind of the whole point of a Souls-like is that it's hard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think that assumes that there's one point and that is the same for everyone, because I think that people have different levels of skills. And I even still think someone who has it set to easy and is genuinely having an easy time, because I think there are people who could have it set to easy and still be having a challenging time and still be getting that same experience. Like, that's just a question about like literal accessibility. But even someone who's like set it to easy and having an easy time, I don't know that it's a binary or like black and white about like this is the intended way to play and like it should be this way. Like, I think there's lots of meanings to take from games in lots of different ways, and that there's not necessarily a right answer, even if there is a really clear intent, or at least what there seems to be a community consensus around like these things. I just think that it's not that black and white.
Yeah, I know that this like opinion that I struggle with, by the way, I'm trying to get over it, literally makes me sound like a conservative. Actually, it is probably my most conservative opinion that like, oh, if you go on easy mode on a game, then you're not really playing the game, which isn't really what I believe either. Like, I don't actually judge it. And it's more a thing where I'm definitely judging myself for it. Like, it's fine if other people seek help, but not me. which I'm sure there's nothing to unpack there. At this point, so yes, we looked up stuff and it made us happier because at least we got through it. Yeah. And then we went and we watered some books.
We watered some books. I believe, did you do the blank book? I think you maybe were asleep at this point.
Yeah, I ran to the library first and then went to sleep, and then you decided to water the secret passage one.
Yes, and I lost my shit. I sent you... I was like, all right, I'm just going to do this. I think I did do the blank books first because I was like, oh, damn, Annie's totally right. I completely forgot about the blank books in the library. Did that. And then I was like, damn, how am I going to do this? Because you need to get still water and use that. You can only do that by drafting the trading post. So how am I going to do this? And I looked it up and it's like, oh, just throw it in the coat check. And I had assumed it wouldn't work because when you put it in the coat check, it refills it the next day. My thought was, if I put in the coat check, I'm going to have to do this thing all over again because that's just regular water. But it turns out it's fine.
It's magic water.
So, yeah, I did that late at night, sitting in the dark, staring so intensely at my screen. And I sent you the Kim Kardashian screaming
it's what picture. I woke up to first thing in the morning.
And I was just 12 all caps texts in a row. So first off, there's another blue holly door there, which hallelujah, hell yeah, we found there's at least more than one, which we knew. So there's one. That gives you access to Lady Arave's atelier, which has a bunch of the drafts for blue holly and lots of clues, it feels like. And then I went and I opened the door in front of the desk, and I entered an insane blue world, and I was like, what the hell? How could they have built an entirely, additional huge area, huge puzzle? First of all, god damn it, we have to do another puzzle. I was so hoping that just, Simon's mom is sitting in this room. No, not what happened. It's a huge puzzle, but I was like, it is so bold to build out this huge area that most of the people who play your game are never going to see. Because not only is it after room 46, it's hours after room 46.
It is 5 or 6 big puzzles deep. And it was at that point really feeling like the climax. As many times as we put off recording for trying to finish the game, this time we were like, this has gotta be it. And it also introduced Lady Arave as a new, interesting character because we'd seen her portraits and things and known she was in the family tree, but it was through this that we learned that she was actually the architect of Mount Holly, and she was one of the ones who was around for the excavation of Mount Holly and discovering all of the history that was held within it that related to the royal family. And it also revealed that she was kind of a bitch, just from her notes and things. Well, I mean, she clearly favored Simon, her younger son. She wrote him certain notes and also seemed to kind of condescend to him even though he was her favorite. The notes that you uncover through this, she was like, oh, my dear Simon, I'm so surprised you've made it this far. Okay, rude. And then there's this note in the atelier that says that she drafted all of these rooms thinking about the greater good and how they could go into homes everywhere, and then decided that she liked them all so much that she was going to keep them for herself. And that's what Mount Holly is. And then, yes, there's a door at the other side of the atelier, which hints at a certain pattern of rooms. And there's a full Mount Holly with 45 rooms back there, but also hints that there's also a room 46 in this rough draft. And that's what it's called. You're in a blueprint, rough draft. I lost my shit too when I got in there. I was like, this is the coolest thing that has ever happened. All of the pain that it took to get to this point is worth it. And then we continued to be in pain on the phone together. It's one of those real
high highs. Yeah, I really wanted to be on the phone when you uncovered this, and I think I had some social obligation to a dear friend that I had to go to instead of being on the phone with you as you uncovered this, but
it's okay. We were there for the end together, and that's what mattered.
Yes.
I think.
That was so good. That felt so good, being on the phone together and figuring it out together.
It was awesome. I will be chasing that high forever. It was so good. So what the rough draft unlocks, though, is I guess it's technically 90 different puzzles, because in each room is a set of new portraits that you have to figure out what letter is in between them to spell a message that the whole floor plan spells out. And it also each has a Mora Jai box in it, and there's a word in each Mora Jai box that spells out a different message. So you have two messages to uncover that teach you how to navigate the blueprint in a way that leads you to secret room 46.
When I realized I had 45 more Mora Jai boxes to do, you were amped because you love the Mora Jai boxes, and I was like,
so amped.
I hate the Mora Jai boxes. I hate them. Like, I actually don't want to do puzzles. I want to do mystery. And I made my boyfriend do some of them. I looked up the solutions to some of them. I did get better. I will say, doing 45 of them, I did improve, but sometimes I would get into a loop where I was like, I swear I have done every possible combination I could be thinking of, and it is just not working. And there's just some really simple thing where it's like, oh, if I had just done this first, it's very easy. I think they're easier than some of the other Mora Jai boxes. So I did do a decent number of them, but I mostly left it to you because I had done actually quite a few by the time you had gotten there, and I was like, let me send you a picture of my grid with all the words written down. And you sort of finished them off, and then we spent quite a while interpreting the message that was left by it.
Yes. This is the message that is from the Mora Jai boxes. Through lantern light and sketches cast a tint of truth to find our path, a hue of wisdom to turn us right, a shade of rain to pass the light. Through lantern light and shadows past, we seek what's left of the lies we cast. And we were like, it's got to be instructions, right? Instructions for navigating these lanterns. So we sat there puzzling it out.
Yeah, which
and actually
importantly
did figure it
to
out.
Ground people, so there's the extremely, it's kind of hurts your eyes, the blueprint rough draft of Mount Holly with 46 rooms. Everything is blue, and but it is not how you normally navigate. There are hallways between each of the rooms, and in those hallways there are multicolored lanterns.
Right. So if you follow what this is saying, it says a tint of truth to find our path. And we were like, okay, we know the color of truth in this game is blue. There's only one blue lantern, which I figured out from mapping the lanterns. I broke out the colored pencils. I was serious about this. I sent Emmy photos, and there was only one blue lantern, so we knew where to begin. And then it was like, okay, now which direction do we go? And we figured it was more like you just kind of start walking and then follow the instructions. So then we figured it out, like, a hue of wisdom to turn us right. Wisdom was purple because it was associated with a Raja. So we were like, okay, probably you turn right at purple. And then
No. Wisdom is orange. But Shade of Rain is purple.
Oh, you're so right. Sorry. Orange is Corsica because of the schools and the academics.
Yes.
Okay. And then Araja it means rain. It's like the land of rain. So then rain is you pass through. So we were like, okay, you pass through purple ones. You'll turn right when you hit orange. We're starting at blue. And then the last thing that I was really having issues with was through lantern light and shadows past, we seek what's left of the lies we cast. We knew that the lie color was red. I was like, what do we do at red? Something red. Eventually, we were like, it says left.
Yeah. Yeah, we tried, like, red. What if you only follow red? What if you never follow red? Because, like, what's left? But it's because the message flips the order. Like, in the earlier message, it's, like, this color to do this. And instead, the end of it is flipped. What's left of the lies we cast?
And there are a few clues, including from the blank library books, that basically tell you might think you want to follow one color path, but that's not the true path. So if you do follow those, certain messages will be uncovered, which I only learned about later because we were looking at the mega thread. But you will get some information from that, but not room 46. But if you follow this, you reach a moon door. It also ended up that there were a few other clues to finding this correct path through the blueprint, which to me were actually like more roundabout, but later I was like, oh. And so one of the blue memos tells you that there's a major key hanging on the wall in the sanctuary, which is where you see the like subway map that you use to figure out the rest of the new clue. There's also a note on the wall that says, "We seek what's in the color of truth." And it turns out that the correct path for getting to room 46 in the blueprint takes you through rooms that spell, "We seek what's in the color of truth." It's very beautiful. It all comes together.
Yeah. Does it all come together, though?
In this particular isolated way, it does. The other message with the missing letters in the portraits is these vying plans forge barren crest among Huam blessed. Huam meaning like our home,
Big house,
our mansion,
manor.
big house.
Yeah.
Blessed. That didn't really have like an answer. I think in the end we decided that it just talks about the different paths through the blueprint that lead you to the true meaning of the home. Which is what this does. Do you agree still?
I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what it means. I don't think I ever felt satisfied with what it means. We thought that maybe it meant we had to put the plans. So there's a few specific rooms that are shown in the layout on top of the door before you enter it. It has a couple that are permanent, or they're all permanent, but it tells you which are in certain spots. And so we thought, okay, maybe if you have a run where you place those things, but one, it was like, that's so hard to do with the randomness of it. And then later in reading some forums, it sounds like it's actually not possible to do, given the rules that govern how you can lay plans. So that we don't know.
Right.
If anyone knows, let us know.
Please tell us. Please, because I can't sleep at night. I normally can't sleep at night, but I lately have been attributing this to blueprints. So in the end, you reach a new room 46. And it looks exactly like the old one, except in blueprint form. But there's another will in there, and it's Lady Arave's. I lost my mind when I read that. I was like, my freaking great-grandma. Basically, to summarize the will, it says that her son Herbert, even though the estate had probably been passed on to him or whatever, and his descendants, actually has no legal right to be passing it on. She owned the estate according to her husband having signed it over to her, which you can see the deed of in the original Room 46 in the manor. But no, she has decided that her true heir is the one who solved this puzzle and found this will and testament, this blue testament in the blueprint. And so you inherit the house again.
I found that so unsatisfying.
There wasn't even a cutscene. That was the thing that I was confused about. I was like, so did we do it? Did we do it? Is there more? Very little fanfare to it. But the house was ours again. Very silly.
Yeah. Now we've really inherited it, unless, of course, there's another puzzle set up by the person who owned it before that then delegitimizes Lady Arave's will.
So here's the thing. Here's where we can get into some of the mysteries and things that we still have questions about, because there are many, and so do other people in the Steam forum. But the one I want to address right now real quick is it is very possible that her claim to Mount Holly is not valid, because it's heavily implied if you inspect the deed that her husband's signature signing Mount Holly over to her was forged by her. You can inspect their handwriting. You can see that it turns into her own handwriting. So you don't know if he was like too old and feeble and intended it and she just took over the writing while he was signing it, or coerced, or who knows. So that's a mystery. And it is not addressed again, so far as I know, in any part of the game. And she doesn't talk about it in her testament in any way. The other thing I want to talk about right now with this testament is just that Lady Arve is such like an Ayn Rand figure to me. Which, I mean, it turns out you were not that familiar with Ayn Rand or her works in general.
Yeah, I've avoided her works in general just due to my general sense of Ayn Rand and who likes her.
That is perfectly valid. Coming from a family that likes her, I know too much. And I've also since listened to some podcast episodes kind of explaining the conservative obsession with Ayn Rand. But for the uninitiated, quick rundown, she was a writer from Soviet Russia who moved to the States when she was young and developed what she called a philosophy and economic outlook called objectivism that is basically like everybody is out there on their own. And the only people who matter are super talented Ubermenschen type people who really run this world, and everyone else is just like leeches on those special people who should be able to do whatever they want. And that is also how she acted in her personal life. And I partly was thinking about her a lot when we finished this game and read Lady Arave's testament. First, because one of her books is about an architect. And second, her tone in the testament is extremely similar to a letter that Ayn Rand once wrote to her 17-year-old niece when her 17-year-old niece asked her for a little bit of money. It's like the harshest thing I've ever read, and I will just read out a couple of sentences from it because, Emmy, I think they'll make you laugh. So, for context, her niece wrote to her to ask for $25 for a dress for an event. Dear Connie, you are very young, so I don't know whether you realize the seriousness of your action in writing to me for money. Since I don't know you at all, I am going to put you to a test. If you really want to borrow $25 from me, I will take a chance on finding out what kind of person you are. On the condition that you understand and accept it as a strict and serious business deal. Here are my conditions. She sets down specific conditions for it, and then says, I want you to understand right now that I will not accept any excuse for non-repayment, except a serious illness. If you become ill, then I will give you an extension of time, but for no other reason. If you do not pay me back, I will consider you as an embezzler. No, I won't send a policeman after you, but I will write you off as a rotten person, and then I will never speak or write to you again. And so it was that bit that was like, if you think I am a hard, cruel, rich old woman and you don't approve of my ideas, well, you don't have to approve, but then you must not ask me for help. And this like high arch tone and this deciding of like what type of person is worth it, worthy of her legacy. It was very Ayn, very Randian, I would say. So on the one hand,
Yes.
I like respect a gaslight gatekeep girl boss, but on the other hand, like I don't think I'd want her as my great grandmother.
Yeah.
So this is where we stopped. This is where we were like, we can go no farther because there's nowhere else to go. And that's when we turned to the internet.
Yes.
For real.
Basically, we made this decision in hand with, like, we were at this point of, like, I am fine looking every single thing up. Like, I'm done. Let's just, like, go see what's out there and what people have been saying. And if there is something big that we're missing, we can go do that. But, like, I'm totally fine to not have uncovered it on my own. But it seems like there isn't anything.
Yeah. So in the end, we're here with a bunch of big mysteries that don't get any answers whatsoever, which does dovetail with the idea that it never ends, and that being the truth of that box in the tunnel. But also, it references this spiral of stars, and we did finally uncover what that meant and how that constellation worked. Once you reach 100, then the spiral of stars appears in the sky. And as you add a star to that constellation, you get a new word in the description of its effect, and therefore a new effect. And I didn't take the spiral of stars to its full end, and neither did you, Emmy, right? We ended up like looking it up partway through.
Mm-hmm.
But it turns out that
because it
when
takes
you...
a very long time.
Yes, to complete the sentence. once you complete the sentence, it like gives you coins and takes them away, gives you gems and takes them away, and steps and whatnot, a bunch of complicated things. And then at the very end of the sentence, it like automatically will end your day when you draft it again. To me, it's something so like self-canceling is a kind of end. It almost punishes you for wanting to complete it, which is a little bit how this game feels. Because aside from that, there are so many open questions in the game's story, and also in some puzzle aspect things, that it seems we're just never going to get an answer to. Do you want to expand on any of those?
Unless it's all in dirigiblocks.
It really could all be locked behind dirigiblocks. When the dirigiblocks update, which by the way, dirigiblocks is just like an arcade cabinet game so far as we know. But if it turns out the dirigiblocks update is going to blow this whole thing apart, it's going to ruin my life when it comes out.
Yeah. I want to talk about what my boyfriend was repeatedly saying once he was over this game, and I was constantly being like, but we have to finish it. He was like, and he's pretty close to a lot of the like conversations around it now and like our ultimate experience with it. He was like, what if it never ends? What if it's a live service game?
Oh god.
Which I thought was extremely funny, and I was like, you're not like super wrong. I was like, it could. There's enough mysteries there to keep it going for a long, long time. But I want to talk about, let's talk about that, and then I want to talk about the experience of playing it with like the community experience of playing.
For sure. So I wrote down a list of the questions that are still my questions after all of this that I do want to know the answers to, that I was literally hoping like, you know, there would be some answers at the end and there just weren't. Why did Lady Arave forge her husband's signature on his will, leaving her the estate? That's still a question. Who are Mary's true parents? It is heavily implied by a letter from Clara to her daughter, once you translate it, that she is neither an Epson nor a Sinclair, as she should be according to her family tree, that she is actually from the J.R.E. line, which is the royal line.
Of
the, like the true one. Well, of a Raja, but also like Orinda.
Yes.
Because there's like
but from like
Orinda Aries.
The idea that it went from Orinda Aries, they fled to a Raja. And then
So we're sitting there like, okay, so who are Mary's true parents? And you can actually find her birth certificate, but there's kind of an implication that that is forged in some way based on the signatures on it as well. So that's suspect, but you don't need to do anything with her birth certificate. And she was also told to go south to a house that was left to her there. I put this one in all caps. Where is my mother? Where is my mother?
Where is my mother? All I want to know is where my mother is. Where is she? I really thought at some point a room was going to open and my mom would be like, I've been living here.
Or I honestly thought it would be like Ravenhurst and her coffin would be there. Like, at least that would be an answer. That like she was dead and we figured it out.
And there is some implication that she died, but that also is implied to not be true.
No, she definitely didn't. That was planted. They like put messages in there that they knew detectives would find, implying that they killed her. But that was only so that she could go hide in the sanctuary and then they could make their escape months later.
Yeah.
Also, on the where is my mother bit, though, it is implied. So you find the blueprints draft, right? That is mentioned nowhere by Herbert Sinclair. He didn't make it behind that door. He didn't solve his mother's puzzle. But the fact that the blueprints draft is behind that door after all of that kind of implies that Mary did that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, she was able to get further than anybody else. So we don't know if she ever made it through the rough draft, but it seems like your mom did a lot more and knew a lot more than what you understand. But there's no way to ask her, because we don't know where she freaking is.
Yeah. Also, the blue memo, do we know if Mary did any of the blue memos, or was it all Herbert?
I think it was Herbert and specifically Kirk Darren, the head of security.
Yeah.
But Mary wasn't doing blue memos.
Because I was just thinking when you were saying that one of the blue memos is the family core is in the family vault, it's like in the game, it says that Herbert was the one to make the blue memos, or most of the memos at the very least. If he doesn't know that it's maybe he figured out it was a numeric core, but didn't know how to do numeric core. But why call it a core? You know? It's like, is that
Yeah.
just an inconsistency, or it doesn't matter? Because this game has trained us to think anything, like anything that seems a little off, at no point is it like a mistake or like a shortcut. It always matters. And so it is like, does this matter?
Yeah, and I think the answer is that is an inconsistency. Like, the in-game explanation is that he created the blue memo system, but it doesn't make sense for some of them to come from his perspective at all.
Yeah.
Like, he just straight up didn't know those things.
Yeah.
And if he did, he would have gone and done more puzzles. I have this question. Why was work stopped and buried in the mines when the ruins of Castle Orindia were discovered? Was that Arave just, like, protecting her past, do we think? Like, not wanting the current regime to go find it?
I don't know, because then Herbert, there's like multiple people blackmailing Herbert, and one was the son or grandson of one of the miners saying, I heard what was found there, and if you don't want me to say anything, you better pay up. So it very much seems like something that wants to be kept hidden.
I mean, what they found was the scepter. And presumably the key of Ares that locks up the scepter.
Right.
And it's kind of implied that all the black prints come from the old castle, because that was the color of Arinta Ares. So I'm assuming it's like that smattering of things. But why stop the work, I guess, was my only thing. I really, really hoped we would get to go down to the old castle. That never really ends up happening. It would have been so cool. Okay, what happened to the missing 8th letter? It's literally missing, we'll never know. That's the red letter. The puzzle of does it never end / denoted in verse / investor needed / the thorn one that I forget what it was, but they're all anagrams of each other using the same letters with some spiral imagery, these notes that you can find throughout the house. What's that about? Probably just to torture us, because it does indeed never end. Original layout of the rooms, we already talked about that one. Doesn't necessarily mean anything. And then finally, there are some missing letters everywhere in the house, like Mary Matthew Jones, but Matthew is spelled with only one T. Missing letters? Is that just another red herring? Does it spell anything? I don't know. So those are puzzle mysteries and story mysteries that haunt me, that haunt my dreams. Do they haunt your dreams?
They don't haunt my dreams. I've gotten over it. But there is, like, we were just talking about one of the articles that was posted somewhat recently, making an argument that the whole message of Blueprints, especially the post-game, is that it does not ever end. And I think there is an argument that I think is reasonable, that is all evidence. It's not necessarily like a puzzle to solve, but rather it's evidence that this is the message, the point, that there is no end. But yet also, Lady Arave says you are nearing the end of the spiral, implying that there is an end.
I'm spiraling. That much is true. I definitely was down. Yeah. So the article that you're referring to is the GameSpot article by Phil Hornshaw that talks about how Blueprints doesn't have a satisfying ending, and that's the point. And there were a couple of other articles and reviews that talk about this, like from Aftermath, I believe it was Chris Person who talks about the true ending of Blueprints, and that there's so much more to it than the stated goal of Room 46, which we definitely figured out. And then there's also another guide, or rather a Kotaku guide, saying like, hey, take your time with Blueprints and let yourself get past Route 46. I understand the argument, and I actually do find Phil's article about it quite moving, because he talks about grief and how grief is an ultimately unsatisfying feeling, because it's by definition something that cannot be resolved. The person that you want to resolve things with is dead, and that's the whole problem.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone who has like quite a bit of experience with grief, like I can see how that would be a way to relate to this game, especially because it starts with someone who has just died in your family and someone who's been missing and possibly has been dead in your family this entire time. But that isn't what the game promised. That's what I feel. I feel like it broke promises to me by leaving so many things open and unanswered. And I don't mean for that to sound like I understand the message, but I don't like it way. I think I mean it more in a puzzle game is built to have answers. So if you're going to put the biggest puzzles in there and not give them answers, what actually is the point of a puzzle game?
Well, it is a genre-defying puzzle game, and I think
that's true.
That's fine with me. Actually, I have no issue with like it not fulfilling the bargain of this, because it does, in terms of Room 46, you fulfill a lot of puzzles. I just think we can have a conversation about like I can actually really buy that this was the intended message, and I think there's textual evidence of it, but I don't think it is successful in imparting that message through the gameplay. I think that
tell me more about that.
Yeah, I think so. Textual evidence is, I think, some of the stuff we've talked about is the repeated imagery of the spiral, the fact that the spiral, like, you cannot really complete the spiral, or it's impossible to complete the spiral and move on. The boxes, where it implies that the true box is the one that says there is no end to this journey. You could make an argument of like, there's the box that says 2 of the boxes in this room are true, that there both is and isn't an end, but that would make 3 of the boxes true, which would be impossible, and then would make the middle one false. So, or maybe, you know, it could be that, no, one of them has to be true. Sorry, I'm just thinking about the logic.
Don't worry about that part.
Don't worry about it. So I think there is this textual evidence. There's the, you know, the letter of Herbert saying, I never solved this puzzle, and died not having solved it. But the game trains you for hours, for us over 100 hours, that every single thing is intentional and has an answer. And so I think that if the intended message is there is no end, or there's no satisfying end, to some extent it's successful, because I certainly didn't get a satisfying end. But I think it is in direct conflict with the experience you have through the mechanics. So it's like, it's really a case of like ludonarrative dissonance. If you even agree that the narrative is such that there is not an end.
I really like what you said about how the game trains you to think a certain way, and then it feels like almost punishes you for thinking that way, which I think maybe is more what I mean about an unfulfilled promise or bargain.
Betrayal.
A betrayal. Because I loved this game. I actually don't know if I would recommend it to people who love puzzling and pain, I suppose, which I'm sure there are dozens of us. But I was also really frustrated by the fact that, yes, you were told to look over everything. Everything would mean something, and that had huge payoff. And other times, like now, it feels like it's turning around and going, ha, joke's on you for thinking that's important. Why would you ever think that was important, or that you would get an answer to that being important? There are cheeky references, I will say, in terms of like the game teaching you how to care about it. There are also a lot of red herrings in it, and cheeky references to red herrings. There is a literal red herring in the aquarium, as one of the blue memos will tell you. And then there are also the red memos, and then the green memos, which sometimes are true and sometimes are not. But even those were things that were important. You were meant to notice them and incorporate them into how you played the game.
Nothing is ever not important. It just is maybe incorrect. So it's never like, oh, this doesn't matter. It just is, it matters in a different way, or it does relate to this thing, but it's false.
Right.
It's rare that it's like this, you just can't answer this. There's so many puzzles that you find an answer to. And so I think that if you care, and maybe the the creators don't, right? Like this is all coming from, if this is the intended message, I don't know that it's successful at delivering it. Or if I were the one who was delivering it, I don't think that I would feel satisfied with it. However, you can also make an argument that's sort of like a circular logic of like, it is not satisfying, therefore it does get the message across. I don't know, but I think there's a difference between the ending is ambiguous and it is ambiguous that the ending is ambiguous.
Yeah, or ambiguous that you have even reached the extent of what you can do. Like, have you reached the ending? Sorta. But no. Maybe that's why there's no cutscene for reaching Lady Arave's thing. It is weird that not weird, I enjoy them. Like, there are cutscenes for many other milestones, but not a lot of the ones at the very, very end. So it's hard to tell if they even are milestones, or if that means you just haven't reached the real milestone yet. You know?
Right.
So I'm trying to interpret a previously established language of the game, and it, at that point in the atelier, stopped communicating in the way it had before.
And again, this is all, I agree with you. Like, it's not that if that were the message, which again, I feel unsure about, if that was the message, I think I could like that. You know, I think that piece is, I think it's convincing. I think there's evidence for it. And I think that is a message that is valuable. And I think it's the message of like in the real world, in our lives, it's true that you never find an answer to things. And sometimes things will remain forever out of reach. Sometimes there is an answer and you don't find it. Sometimes there's just not an answer. I think all of that is like a good message and I value it. I just don't think that I got it successfully through the gameplay, because I think more than the textual evidence of like the clues that you get, I think the gameplay in this very gameplay heavy game matters a whole lot more for delivering that type of message.
I agree. And I think you've put it so well.
Thank you.
I was going to get petulant about it. I was going to be like, well, is it a good ending if it's one I don't like? Is it? Is it a good ending if you didn't answer the question I wanted answers, which is, where is my freaking mom?
Yeah, I think I feel less personally like
Attacked.
How do I put the I feel less personally attacked. I don't want to imply that you feel personally attacked, because I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm like okay if it was like it's like, oh, I led you down this path and then I did a rug pull on you. I'm okay with that. It's sort of like what the conversation we had about Death of the Reprobate, of like, I'm okay with that. It's just that I don't think it is done in a way that is, if that is the message, it is not sufficiently clear. Which again, you can make an argument that's like, well, the message is not sufficiently clear, and sometimes things aren't sufficiently clear. But that didn't do it for me. Like, however that's meant to be interpreted, or how you can interpret it, I just didn't come away with an interpretation besides like, that's a bummer, which is a bummer.
Yeah, it is a bummer.
Because I spent a lot of hours on this game. We wouldn't have played this game for so long if we weren't really into it. And I do really like the marrying of the roguelite elements and the mystery. I love the aesthetic of it. I find the puzzles very satisfying. I love the like meta, which is making me think people have compared it to Lorelei and the Laser Eye, and people have feelings about that comparison. It makes me want to try Lorelei and the Laser Eye, which I've thought about before and just ultimately never played it. Because I love the meta puzzle of like connecting multiple things together. I find that really fun. I don't know. I lost my train of thought. I really loved this game. I love the experience of playing this game, and it just is a bummer to just feel like it didn't hit the landing, and to even have a hard time talking about what the landing is.
Especially because it did become such slog is not the right word exactly, but because it became such a struggle, like an uphill battle by the end.
Yeah.
Even though when we hit
of
those
persistence. Yeah.
Even though when we hit those highs and reached those milestones, it felt so good and cool. It did get a lot better when it got a lot better when we started playing together, when we started comparing notes and hanging out on the phone. It made me wish that we lived together again, so that we could be like playing it side by side.
Yeah, which I want to talk about more. Are we good with moving on from does it never end?
Does it never end? I mean, is it possible to end that conversation? But let's pretend it is. Okay. Let's move on.
Because I do really want to talk about the thing that I love the most about this game, which is that, like, it's a team sport. It's a single-player game that is a community game. It's a multiplayer game with no technical implementation of multiplayer. Like, that was my experience of it, and I absolutely loved that. I loved talking to a friend about it. I love that she suggested playing with my partner because that's what she was doing. I loved playing with my partner and handing the controller back and forth or talking about it together. I loved coming to him after a late night of, like, figuring out some bullshit and saying, like, well, first you do this and then you do this, you do this, and you do this. And I loved stringing that all together and telling him about it. And I loved so much. I was so happy playing it on the phone together. We were talking about it as, like, a sleepover, and it felt so good and so fun to problem solve together. And I think it's also, like, this feeds back into my research of like games supporting relationships and, like, how we make meaning and sense make together. But, like, this game does that so well, and it's like the game is just like a confluence of coincidences that it feels magical when they come together, but the only way, at least in my experience, to make them come together is to at least rely on the internet community of it, whether that's, like, guides or forums, and then, you know, really relying on your people on the playground who are playing it with you. And in this case, that, like, really it felt so fucking good to be on the phone together, interpreting this message, and, like, the moment of saying, like, oh my god, what if what's left of the lives we seek is the direction left, like, and unlocking all of that. It's amazing. But then, yeah, the game rewards you time and time again with such a satisfying reward for taking the littlest thing as having meaning that it feels so contradictory for the idea of that to be like, well, but actually ultimately there's no reward for it.
Yeah. I don't have much to add to that. I thought that was just beautiful, and I agree. And it was really wonderful to be on the phone with you, making meaning out of this. And it did remind me, too, of times when I'd played a game and not had anybody to talk to about it except for other kids in my class. And I went to them to ask for help because this was before I had access to the internet where I could look up what was going on in Pokemon Red or whatever. It also made me wonder what the experience of playing this will be years down the line. Because I'm sure that it'll still pop up as, like, honestly, a classic of the genre, even though it's genre-defying. And what the experience of uncovering these mysteries not in real time will be like. Because we were a little behind, like, you know, the mega thread on Steam.
Yeah.
Because by the time we finished up, it was, like, May, early June, and the game had come out in April. But we were still pretty close to it all. And there are also some pretty good fan art, like, things and memes and whatever that I was sending you, that was finding on Tumblr as well. And yeah, like, everything will have been uncovered, probably. Unless there's something very, very secret in the game when other people get to it. So I wonder how it will feel to be doing archaeology on the game having come out itself.
Yeah.
While playing the game. So when's Dirigiblox coming?
Yeah, when this Dirigiblock's coming, it's gonna unlock everything. There is an end, and it's in Dirigiblocks. Yeah, if anyone's listening to this and is like screaming because it's like, oh, you like forgot about whatever this puzzle is, and that actually blows everything wide open. Tell us about it nicely. But also we have, or at least Annie has read all 500 pages of the Steam.
I really did
Late
the second
game
I finished the
forum.
game. I
So
went through, I looked at every possible remaining mystery. I saw some people being
Yeah.
wrong about stuff, and then thankfully I kept reading
Yeah.
and somebody corrected them as they went forward. There is one thing they mentioned in that thread, though, that I do want to go back and try. It's like the one thing, and it's apparently that you can make an enormous gem flower appear in the greenhouse under certain conditions. That sounds like the type of playground rumor that wouldn't be true. Like my uncle worked at Nintendo, said so. They didn't have screenshots, and I do want to test it out. But otherwise, yes, it seems most of the people who are other late game freaks like us have all the same questions and none of the answers either.
Is there anything else that you want to say about this game? I think we could end with some of our fun mysteries that are left. We can read them off back and forth. Would that be fun?
Oh, for sure. Yes, I categorized my questions and mysteries in the game. I had mysteries as mysteries surface level, many of which end up being answered, like why did Herbert show allegiance to the Fen Ares regime for a while? Mysteries deeper, which we went through, and then mysteries silly. Here's one. Why is Simon still sleeping in a tent outside after he inherits the house? He can move in. It's like 15 bedrooms.
Yeah. Relatedly, why has his dad not come to pick him up yet? There are 2 blue tents. Where is his father? He is 14 years old.
He's 14 years old. He's alone. He's eating what the entire time? Like, he's eating turnips from the ground, like actually like fresh from the ground, 1 meal per day, which sometimes is just a pizza, and random fruits. Is his dad worried about him? There's 1 letter from his dad in the mailroom. I was hoping for another one to appear and it doesn't. Okay, question, though I think we kind of know the answer to this. Is somebody feeding the dogs in the kennel and the hamster in the bunk room? I'm worried about them.
Yeah, I think Anne Babbage is feeding them because we know she comes up to reset the rooms, so that's my
Which,
guess.
by the way, was a crazy revelation to me. Anne Babbage, the housekeeper, comes up every night while you're asleep in your tent on the lawn and resets the house, and that's why. It doesn't do that naturally. That's why the house is different every day. Does she check on Simon? I think that she doesn't. We read in the emails that she's not sure how he's doing. So, okay. Yeah. Do you want to ask another question?
Yeah, I mean, this is more your thing than my thing. Annie really wants justice for gardener Denny Ravane. Moonshine smuggler Denny Ravane. Blackmailer moonshine smuggler Denny Ravane. Annie wants justice for him.
Because, okay, well, first off, several things going in his favor, actually. This is a mansion with, like, endless rooms, including many extra bedrooms, where everyone else who works on the house has a room in that house. Like, they have quarters, a bed, etc. And Denny is in a room literally called the hovel outside the house. Is it because he works in a garden and they think he's constantly dirty that he must live in a hovel outside the home? If I were put in a hovel and my coworkers were not, I too would not like my employer very much.
And also, you weren't allowed to file a patent for your invention.
That was the next thing, which I only discovered later. But yes, Denny invented flowers that grow artificial gems, which is miraculous, and he was not allowed to file a patent or take his invention out to market, and instead was forced to keep it within the house to create gems for already extremely rich people. I'd be pissed too. And then to keep matters worse, everybody was keeping secrets from him and lying to him about things that had actually gone on. The man just had questions. Like, I can't blame him for exploring the house and finding passageways. Denny's a man of the working class. I think that he just did what he had to do to survive. I know I'm supposed to be on Herbert's side, but I think it's actually fine that he got money from Herbert and left. I would not have enjoyed being Denny in that situation either. That's my rant. That's my soapbox. Justice for Denny Ravain. It was the hovel that really got me.
Proletariat, Denny Ravain. Do you want to go through your list of weird houses books? Or general things about weird houses? Your weird house recommendation list?
I mean, I think I mentioned some of them in part 1, but one of the things that drew me to this game in the first place is that I do love a weird house. So I just had a list of like books and things in the genre of weird houses that I've already read that I was thinking about as I was going. And that was like House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones, Piranesi by Susanna Clark, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, and then for some real life weird locations that feel similar to this, there's the Museum of Jurassic Technology in Los Angeles and the Velislavsky Panorama also in Los Angeles. And then I talked about the Poetics of Space a bit in the previous episode. So I was thinking a lot about that, and then also simulacra and simulation when we're talking about like facsimiles of things. Mm. It was all swirling in my brain when I was playing this game, and then it made me a little bit crazy to think about, so I tried to stop thinking about it. But I do want to reread House of Leaves.
I think there's probably a whole conversation to be had about liminal spaces and like liminality that could be interesting, but I just don't have any formulated thoughts about it right now. I need to think about it more. And like, again, Uncanny, The Hearth, Unheimlich, Haunted Houses, etc., etc.
Yeah. We're intellectuals, but this is not an intellectual podcast, so people can do their own research.
I've already thought so hard about this game just by playing the game that I'm not that willing to think hard about it, besides the things that like first came to mind about it.
Agreed.
And that's why I'm a true podcaster.
In the end, I think we were just so tired. In some ways we were satisfied, but it wasn't a complete tired. It was we labored and we were crashing.
Yeah, which
not
again,
like a good workout.
Maybe that's the point, and in which case, that's really well done, but I feel like that's a little too convenient.
Convenient is a good word for that. It feels like at every turn, if you say, hey, there was a way that this was unsatisfying to me and I don't really know how to put it into words, someone can turn around and go, gotcha, but it's supposed to be unsatisfying. So you're unhappy for the reason. And then that doesn't feel good enough.
It's like how a good theory needs to be disprovable. Like,
is that a thing?
Yeah. That's like a like Popper philosophy of science thing of like, or at least this is like the psychology positivist version of it, which is that like you can't have a theory that you can't disprove. Like you can't have a theory that it's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. Like there's no way to test it. So you need to have something that's like you would be able to disprove it through hypothesis testing or the like of like if you would need to be able to find evidence that would make the theory false. If it's impossible to get that evidence that would make it false, then it's not a good theory.
That makes sense. Well, I will be right back to that spiraling place the second the Dirigiblocks update hits, but for now, I'm very happy to move on from this genuinely life-changing experience. Is that an endorsement? I don't know.
Well, I'm so glad we got this done.
I'm so glad too. Thank you for sticking through it with me. The state of Silksong. Emmy, you have already mentioned that you have been taking a much-needed break from it in the form of Hades 2, because it's been frustrating. So tell me more about that. Where are you at with the game? What's frustrating you?
Yes. Well, I should also clarify that partly that break is Hades 2, which is rejuvenating in its own way of, like, feeling like I'm making a lot of progress versus Silksong doesn't always feel like I'm making a lot of progress. And then also I went back to Infinity Nikki because they had an outfit that makes Momo, the cat companion, creature look like a ballerina.
It's really cute. You sent it to me.
It's pretty fucking cute. It is very, it's very luxe. It has like jewels and gems, diamonds woven into the bodice of his tutu, and it's very silly and cute, and it got me back into it. And then I did spend money on it because I wanted the 5-star hair, and it was the last part of the outfit that I completed. Sorry, this is now State of Infinity Nikki.
Oh, of course. My question is, the 237 Blinko fish, how do those come into play?
Annie is referring to an embarrassing message that I sent her. That was a screenshot of me reaching out to Infinity Nikki customer support saying, please help. I accidentally bought 237 Blinkos fish and spent all of my Astrolite, which is the currency for buying furniture sketches and ability items for the housing update. So in the housing update, you can raise fish in ponds, and so the Blinko fish are one of the specific new fish that you can only raise in your home. And there are other fish that I unlocked that are normal fish, and those are limited on a monthly basis. So I was just going through each of them and hitting max to get the max number you can get for the month, which is like 8 fish. The Blinko fish do not have a monthly max on them, and so
God.
I was automatically sort of like hitting up max buy, up max buy, up max buy. Did to the Blinko fish before I could process that there was not a limit on it, and it was instead limited by the amount of currency I had. I had purchased 236 or 37 Blinko fish to raise, and I will be raising those Blinko fish for the rest of my life. Because I could not
How
sell
do you
them
even
back.
have that? How come the pond even has that much room in it?
It does not have that much room.
Oh, what?
Hey, you can do 1 fish per pond. I don't know if you can level that up, but that's why I'm saying that I'm gonna be cursed with those fucking Blinko fish for the rest of my life. I did for sure, like, you do, like, generate it automatically where you can get, like, 7,500 a day or something. Like, I feel like I wasn't Astrolite poor for too long. So, like, really, it's fine. It's just very stupid. Anyways, that's State of Silksong. Infinity Nikki edition.
Can I talk about the actual playing of Silksong that I'm doing?
Yeah.
Did I tell you about what happened with the Skull Tyrant?
No.
Okay, so are you familiar with the side quest wish that you can get to beat a boss called the Skull Tyrant that hangs out in the Marrow?
Yes, because for a while I was looking for it and I could not find it.
Yeah. So I got that wish. I found the Skull Tyrant. I defeated it. And then once you've defeated it, you get an object that like proves you defeated it, and it tells you to go back to Bone Bottom and hand it in. I went back to Bone Bottom. Before I handed it in, I took a seat at the bench. Can I spoil something for you that I learned there's only a 30% chance of happening? Can I spoil something for you that happened to me?
Yes, but let's inform our listeners that. And so maybe you want to skip forward, like...
Yeah, a few minutes. We'll even section it out. Skull Tyrant
we'll
spoilers.
Put a chapter marker.
I sat down on the bench, and I was on the phone with my sister at the time, so she heard this happening to me in real time. I sat down on the bench, and then I yelped out loud because all of a sudden, no warning, a second Skull Tyrant showed up and barreled past me, totally takes me out, and poor Pilby, the little pilgrim that sits at the fireplace next to you in Bone Bottom, he gets killed. He gets killed by a rampaging Skull Tyrant that comes by, and then you're immediately in battle again with another Skull Tyrant, and then I died. I was sitting there, like, sputtering on the phone with my sister. She was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't want to spoil it for you, but what the fuck, man? What the fuck? So I died. I go back to Bone Bottom. The second Skull Tyrant is nowhere to be seen at this point, although if you go into the Bell Beast's station, you can hear it pounding upstairs somewhere. Pilby's still dead. His corpse is by the fireplace. I was losing my mind, so I just left for a while because I didn't know what to do. When I came back, the Skull Tyrant was there again, so I beat it again this time, and then the bench was still destroyed. Nothing else to do. I left, came back. When I came back, the other pilgrims of Bone Bottom were rebuilding, and they held a funeral for Pilby. You get a little cutscene of them holding a funeral for Pilby, and they chuck his body down the pit where you first start the game. And I played my needle in for it. I wanted to hear the songs. I needed to honor Pilby. I couldn't believe this.
A 21 gun salute for Pilby.
Exactly. And then I jumped. Well, then I jumped down to follow the body because I wanted to see if I could hear anything from Pilby still, and there were little whispers of, like, his dreams of reaching the Citadel, you know? It was so depressing, and also I was still sitting there like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Was this avoidable? So I told my sister about it, and I told another friend who'd also beaten the Skull Tyrant but hadn't returned the thing yet, and they were like, nothing happened. And I felt like, did I hallucinate this? I know I didn't hallucinate it. I took screenshots. So I had to go look it up. And yeah, there's only a 30% chance of this happening. And there's another thing where apparently Pilby at one point would have moved from Bone Bottom to Pilgrim's Rest, which is like the next town up on the way to the Citadel. So Pilby didn't have to die.
It's even less likely that Pilby is killed.
But also, I'm a little like, but I got this cool funeral scene.
Yeah.
Because he died that other people don't see.
This is what we want from Hades too.
Yeah. I mean, it was consequences. It was consequences. So I just needed to share that because I think it's not something that everyone has run into. And I'm pretty tuned into, like, the social media of it all with Silksong. So I was also like, how did I not see a reel about this already or something? So I just wanted to alert everybody that there's a chance that this might happen to you. I did that all before I entered Act 2 after beating the last judge. So your mileage may vary, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm still in Act 1. I just beat the Widow.
And so you've got the needle in now as well.
Yes, now I also have the needle in.
I've been jamming everywhere I go.
The pincushion tool.
Oh, the one that explodes?
Yeah.
I love that one. I
haven't really used it yet.
The pin pillow.
Yes, the pin pillow. Oh, I still need to do the Chapel of the Beast, which was driving me bonkers, and you had
Savage Beastfly is rough.
Yeah, beating the Widow first, so I think hopefully I'll go back and it'll be a little bit better, but for now my time's kind of taken up doing Infinity Nikki dailies and Hades 2, so...
Yeah, I understand. I want to talk to you about Act 2, so I hope you get bored of Infinity Nikki soon. Until, of course, they do another update with a new currency. And I would, if you can help it, encourage you to just ignore the Chapel of the Beast, because you get a new crest. It's not a crest I think you'll want to use. That's it.
Can I come back to it once I'm in Act 2?
Yeah, it's still there.
Okay. That's when I have a hard time. That's when I have a hard time leaving things behind, and I get sort of obsessive about completing challenges, even if I'm really struggling with it. Is when I'm
because you don't want to miss it
lose
forever.
The opportunity. Yeah.
No, that one definitely.
If I can come back to it later, then I'll try to move on.
Definitely. The only thing plot-wise that I'm still kind of waiting to click is that so much of this is about Hornet, a hunter, being brought into this harsh world where it really is like about hunter and prey, but also has this overarching religion holding tight to everyone. And it really is framing like the leaders of this religion as hunters and the followers of the religion as their prey. And the followers of the religion not recognizing that about themselves. However, Hornet doesn't really have a personal connection to that other than being a weaver. So it seems like the question for her will be more like, are you going to try to assume the legacy of your forebears? But she didn't really know that these forebears of hers were doing this at all. She has no real personal connection to this idea and already seems extremely dismissive of it and not susceptible to the power grab. So I'm a little bit like, was this the right story for Hornet? I don't know. I still love it, though, and I still love her attitude with her encountering it all.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to getting back into it. I wish things were just a little less, like... Because I want to be both in the zeitgeist of, like, Hades 2 coming out and
Yeah, it's hard.
Silksong. But I feel like I don't have time for both, especially not while I have to do my Infinity Nikki chores every day.
Tell me about a game. Tell me about a game.
I'm going to tell you about several games, 5 games. First one I wanted to talk about comes out October 2nd. It is Ailu. It is stop motion animation, a wooden mouse, like mechanical mouse kind of, in these actual 3-dimensional sets that they made. And so you're playing as this wooden mouse navigating a puzzle trying to escape. And Ailu is spelled Ealu with upward accents on the E and the U. So it's an Irish word for escape. That looks really cool. It's got this like FMV, because I guess it is FMV because it's video clips for the animation, which is full motion video. If people aren't familiar with I had not heard of that for a while because FMV games aren't super common, especially these days. But I am really excited to play this. It's also probably going to be pretty short, 2 to 5 hours. So I definitely am planning on playing that when it comes out on October 2nd.
That's incredible. Stop motion wooden blocks and sets. It makes me think of an I Spy book almost.
Yeah, it's really neat looking. Karimara is another one coming out in October 6th. It is a horror adventure game. I wanted to actually quote the description because I think it's really good. Wandering a house stitched from grief and riddles, you don't speak, you don't chant, you don't fight. You hold the house by its dead hands and conjure questions from dust, from bone, from whatever's left behind.
Weird house game?
Yes, weird house game. I'm interested in this weird house game. I'm always really attracted to like interesting, unique styles. It's black and white. It's got a very kind of like, I would say, Slavic folk horror kind of style to it. And yes, weird house games. You play as you aren't able to speak, but you can use cards to ask questions of people. I really like that. The way the description is written is like, I really like that. Also, not as much weird house game, but a game where the house is meaningful. Undusted Letters from the Past comes out October 13th. And that's about returning home after the main character's mother passes away. And it reminded me of, was it Goblin Merchant, where you're like rotating objects and cleaning them. So it is a sort of a similar mechanic of you have these sort of worn down, dirty objects and you're restoring them. And as you restore them, it prompts memories. So very story driven with like a pretty straightforward mechanic. But I love that kind of recovery, restorative approach to things. I wish I could play Power Wash Simulator, but it makes me motion sick. So if you're looking for a more like cozy, story-driven Power Wash Simulator, this might be it.
Cozy was in air quotes, to be clear.
Yes. Absolem comes out October 9th. That's a roguelite beat 'em up. I just think it has a really cool, stylish vibe. It has really stylish looking combat, this hand-drawn cartoon art style. It just looks slick and stylish in a way that it looks like it could be really satisfying. Last one I wanted to talk about specifically for Annie, coming out on Playdate, because Annie is the only person I know
Yes.
on Playdate on October 7th. Do you know what I'm about to tell you? Or
No,
okay.
I don't. I haven't been keeping up
This
with Playdate news for a couple months.
Totally accurate kissing booth simulator.
Okay.
So it is a kissing booth simulator with I saw some places procedurally generated facial features. I don't know whether that's true or not. I just saw that in the description on the Internet Games database where I look for upcoming games. It looks very wacky with these like facial features sort of floating around, and you have to aim to kiss, and they're like, well, it's totally accurate. So the more accurate you are, the more tips you get. And you're also trying to get kisses from your secret crushes in your secret crush diary.
Can I pre-order this? But I will be purchasing. This is incredible. It's for charity, okay? The kissing booth in game is for charity anyway. Yes. I don't know if the real game is.
I'm so glad I looked more into it because I was like, what is this? And then I was like, oh my god, it's on a Playdate. Annie's gonna be so amped. The accuracy really tickles me. I can't wait for you to play it. I'm hoping when I see you in person next time you bring your play date and I can play it.
Absolutely. I don't know if you saw, I'm just reading about the specs, but part of it is optimizing pressure, and you have to use the crank for that. That's so good.
Oh,
I will be
Oh,
buying.
that's
You will
great.
get to play. Don't you worry. Don't you
okay.
worry.
I'm so happy you hadn't heard about this and it was a surprise to you.
I could cry.
I thought you were gonna be like totally accurate kissing booth simulator. Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah,
I heard about it.
everybody's heard of that. Amazing. Thank you for this gift, Debbie. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I guess that's a wrap. I don't know if we'll say goodbye. How do we wrap this up? How do
We
we say
gotta come
goodbye?
up with a sign off.
Yeah, we gotta do something cute. But not today.
Bye bye. Hate that.
That was awful. I'll cut it.